Hello, good evening, wherever you are, whatever time of day it is. It's evening for me here in Ohio. Welcome to another episode of the Uncanny Spirits Club. And no, I still haven't cut my hair, so I don't know what it's doing. Um, but yeah, I have another great tasting for you. I assume it'll be great. If not, then I guess it won't. I don't have the jokes for the moment. Um, so what do we have? What do we have? Tonight we have Cleveland Underground bourbon whiskey finished with black cherry wood. Now, this is finished and bottled by Cleveland Whiskey in the city of Cleveland, Ohio. It says that on the back. And I have had before a bottle of Cleveland whiskey that was not Cleveland Underground. It came like a taller, thinner bottle that was like a limited edition, which they still have at the store for being a limited edition. So I might get another one because it was relatively close in price to this and it wasn't that bad. But this is, like I said, finished with black cherry wood. It's from their Uncommon Barrel collection, according to that. And you can also see it's a 47% alcohol by volume, which is roughly 94 proof. And some hand numbered batch and bottle numbers. Bottle 2111. I'm assuming that's a 2 and not a Z. Maybe it's Z111. I don't know. um, but they use, if you remember, they use a specific process to almost artificially age the bourbon. And I remember the last bottle was actually pretty decent, so it actually worked out pretty well. Um, but what it says is it has an advanced pressure and oxygenation process. It has this on the label, which adds a series of flavors and aromas never before experienced in traditional whiskeys. Whether that's true or not, who knows? I've had a lot of different whiskeys, but I haven't compared them that deeply on a level where I've never tasted that before in my life. My goodness. Um, and they go on to say that these radically different, unique wood combinations and pressure extractions are considered controversial and even sacrilegious to some. And I read some articles about it, and it is kind of, people are kind of up in the air about it. There are people who are adamant that if you don't do it right, you can't call it bourbon and you can't call it whiskey and you can't call it this. And then there's other people who are like, no, it's pretty good. Why not? And I know I liked their other one. So it finishes off by saying that their bourbon is naturally colored and flavored with sustainable woods from around the world, and there are no artificial flavors or colors added. Always a good sign. This was $39.99 at the grocery store, plus tax, of course. So it's about mid-range price wise. It's not as cheap as what I have been buying a lot of recently, but it's not going to break the bank account either if you get one of these every so often. As you know, I've been kind of avoiding the 69, 79, whatever dollar bottles because that's how things go sometimes. But this is at the upper limit of what generally a fair pricing run would be before I start getting kind of like depending on the paychecks. So let's take a peek and see what this is like. Pop the cork right there. Nice satisfying pop. Synthetic cork. Um, you may have noticed a trend that in the last few bottles I've done, I've kind of been commenting whether it's been an organic, natural cork or synthetic. And it's less a commentary. Like, I don't know if it makes a big difference. I haven't done any testing. I haven't looked up, what possible effects it might have on the bourbon. It's just a curiosity to me at this point. So I'm going to keep mentioning it in case it's important to you. It's not particularly important to me, but somebody out there might have some thoughts about it. And if you want to educate me on why this is good or bad, by all means, send me an email about it at uncannyspiritsclub@gmail.com or comment on this video on YouTube. Okay? I'm a little stuffy, so I'm not sure how good my sniffer is going to work on some of this stuff. It smells like a bourbon, which is fair. Smells like a bourbon so far. Smells a little spicy. Smells like something that would work if you were going to mix it with a little bit of Coke, some kind of cola. They had this and they had a rye, which I believe the rye was like 42 or 43. And I was like, that's more than I'm really comfortable spending today. And I know some people out there going to be like, oh, what's $2, $3? $2 or $3 is a couple loaves of bread. So I got to keep an eye on those $2 and $3. All right. But maybe next time. Maybe next time. It's on the radar and it's not particularly ridiculous price wise. So let's give that a pour. Now in the bottle, it's a nice deep reddish brown. I've had a lot recently that have been the golden brown, auburn kind of color. This is a deep reddish brown color. Put this over there. And in the glass, it looks more orange than it does in person, although it does have a nice orangey. I think I've said this before about some bourbons. If you're a Crayola fan and you're a kid, you always find that one crayon that's like burnt sienna or something like that. And then always this name always stuck with me. And this is kind of like that. It's burnt sienna, I suppose. Smells decent enough. Smells clean. It doesn't smell too alcoholic for being a higher proof. Yeah, it doesn't smell like it's gonna smack your brains out the first taste you get, which is nice. There is some spice in there. So even though this isn't the rye, I think this has a higher rye content than what would normally be in a bourbon, but it's hard to say for sure. So we're gonna knock it back and we're gonna see about having a taste here and see how it goes. It's not sharp. It's not very sharp at all. It does have an interesting flavor, and I know a few times in the past I've said interesting, and I've come up with something outlandish like and I wasn't sure about it. But this is interesting in a way that I can taste the cherry wood. I can definitely taste the cherry wood. There is a definite, unmistakable cherry feeling to it. Very much dark fruits, not so much creaminess, not like the last one or two that I had where there was like a creamy taste to it. But there is a nice dark fruit, sweet and sour kind of thing going on in there, which isn't bad. And it doesn't bite you. It doesn't like stab at your mouth and things like that. The alcohol content is there. I can feel the warmth. And it doesn't sink into the chest like some other really like hefty ones do. It kind of settles nicely in the face. It does kind of dry you out a little bit. It is kind of drying out the saliva glands a little bit. I know I've said before that some things produce saliva. This one seems to be kind of drying it out a little bit. This is more of a dry bourbon. So if you're going to pair this with any kind of food, you want something with moisture in it to kind of counterbalance a little bit, like some kind of a rich dessert, like some kind of like a cherry chocolate cake, actually, with like the cherry juices and everything mixed into the batter and whatnot. I'm not a chef. I'm not a cook. I'm not a baker. But having made a couple of cakes in the past, that's one thing that I know people do. But yeah, it's like a nice, juicy kind of cake. Juicy probably isn't the right word for it. But anyway, not like a dry cake. Not like a donutty kind of cake or anything like that. Let's do another taste. Now the palate has adjusted to the first one and see if anything new comes out. A bit more Swedish. Not Swedish, but sweet-ish. Not, I don't know what is Swedish something. Well, Swedish fish, maybe more sweet, a bit more sweetness in there. Yeah, definitely dark fruits is what I'm getting mostly from that. Um, yeah, it's not bad. I like that it doesn't attack you with the alcohol content because a lot of bourbons, because I'm trying not to get into a trap. There's a bit of a trap among people who rate alcohols to say, "Oh, that's so smooth." Well, I mean, smooth doesn't tell you anything. Smooth can mean a whole lot of things. If like 50% of everything you review is smooth, well, then what's the difference in using the word? But it doesn't have a bite. It doesn't have a sharpness to it, which is nice. Certain things like Jack Daniels has a bite. It has a sharpness. Tennessee whiskeys tend to have that. Maker's Mark is a hefty bourbon, and it sometimes has that and the heavy bit of heat that just sinks right on down the esophagus. Um, but this doesn't have that. This is nice. It's mild. Um, I can tell that the alcohol in there is doing its job. It's got a nice buzz starting. It's got the flavor, a little bit of numbness on the tongue, but not a huge amount. So yeah, it's not bad. If you want something that isn't going to smack you around, um, then this is a pretty good choice. Um, Once again, it's Cleveland Underground bourbon whiskey finished with black cherry wood and 94 proof for 750 milliliters, average size bottle, and $39.99 at my local grocery store. Now they have a few other things that I've been looking forward to reviewing, but I mean some things have been outside the budget, and I'm just waiting. I'm gonna hang out, wait on that. Um, but yeah, what are your thoughts if you've had this? If you have had this before, what do you think? If you've had the rye, let me know what you prefer. Will you prefer this over the rye or under the rye or wherever? And I'll try to work the rye into a future video. And yeah, that's that. I'm going to go ahead and enjoy this for the evening. So until next time, of course, as always,